And now, the Proud Little Seaman Lounge presents our version of Disney's Mr. Lincoln. Welcome to Great Moments with Mr. Clinton, starring our little audio animatronic answer to the deterioration of respect for the office of the President of the United States, Willie!
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let me just say this. Thank you. I am your president. Hey, wait a minute now. I haven't even started the jokes yet. And now, without any further to-do, here comes the hilarity. How do you recognize Al Gore when he's surrounded by Secret Service agents? Easy. He's the stiff one. Now, here's something for you folks to ponder. You know what I say to Hillary right before sex? See you in an hour, honey. Huh, but seriously, folks. One day I was jogging along the beach, as I am wont to do, when I found a lamp. I rubbed it, the lamp that is, and a real genie appeared. I was amazed. "What is your wish?" he asked. "Isn't it obvious?" I replied. "Peace in the Middle East. See this map? Make these countries stop fighting each other." The genie looked at the map and then looked at me. "Damn it, man, I'm good, but I'm not that good. These countries have fought for thousands and thousands of years. It just can't be done. Make another wish." Well, I thought about it, and then it struck me I knew exactly what I wanted. You know my wife, Hillary? I want you to make her the most beautiful woman in the world, and I want you to make everybody like her. And do you know what that genie said? Here, let me see that damn map. Enjoy the veal. I'll be here all week. Just the other morning, I jogged down to McDonald's with Hillary's new puppy. A guy yelled at me, "Hey, Mr. President, cute puppy." I replied, "Yeah, ain't she? I got her for Hillary." And he yelled back, "Good trade." Last summer, Vice President Al Gore and I were guests at a barbecue fundraiser when I noticed an old dog lying by the podium licking himself. I leaned over to Al and said, "Boy, I sure wish I could do that." You know what Al said? "I don't know, Mr. President. He looks kind of mean to me." I'll tell you that, Al. He can be a real cut-up sometimes. Okay, brace yourselves. This is a killer. Here's a Bob Dole joke for you. How is an old man like a bumper sticker? Well, the older they get, the harder it is to get 'em off. Isn't that right, Elizabeth? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing you know about me, it's that I am an expert on the fairer sex. Now, follow me on this. From age 13 to 18, a woman is like Africa, virgin and unexplored. From age 18 to 30, she's like Asia, wild and exotic. From age 30 to 45, she's like the United States of America, fully developed and free with her resources. From age 45 to 60, she's like Europe, well explored, nearly worn out, but still has points of interest. From age 60 on, she is like Australia. Everybody knows it's down there, but nobody really cares. Somebody douse me, I'm on fire. What do you get when you cross an onion and a donkey? Well, most of the time you get an onion with really long ears. But every once in a while, you get an ass that'll bring tears to your eyes. And if you see one, call me on the hotline. Now, folks, stop me if you've heard this one. No, I'm just kidding. Don't stop me. An airliner went through some really violent turbulence, rough enough that the flight attendants strapped themselves in and many of the passengers were airsick. When they finally got through it and the air calmed, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Well, folks, that was quite some ride, wasn't it? But we came through it with flying colors, and I'm glad to report it looks like the remainder of our trip will be smooth sailing. On behalf of myself and the flight crew, I'd like to thank you very much for your cooperation and extend our best wishes for a pleasant stay in Boston." Then, wrongly believing he had switched off his microphone, he said to his co-pilot, "What a friggin' ride! Man, I could use a strong cup of coffee and a blowjob right about now." As a stricken stewardess dashed up the aisle to inform him his microphone was still on, a sweet little old lady called out to her, "Honey, don't forget the coffee." Once when I was in college, I ate a hash brownie, but I didn't swallow. You know my definition of safe sex? Well, it's any time Hillary is out of the White House. Ha ha ha. One of my top aides, at least one of the ones who's still with me, Andrew Fairthorne, told me that joke. It's not bad, huh? Thanks, Andy. You know that FBI file we got on Al Lowe? Honest mistake, I swear. And, you know, you can trust me. The Pope dies. And, well, naturally, being the Pope, he goes to heaven. It'd be kind of funny if he didn't go to heaven, huh? That'd be a whole nother joke. Now, he's met in heaven by St. Peter at the pearly gates, and after a whirlwind tour of heaven, is told that he can enjoy any of the myriad recreations available. He decides that he's going to read all the ancient original texts of the Holy Scriptures. After an eon or so to learn the languages, he sits down in heaven's library to pore over every version of the Bible. Suddenly there's a scream in the library. The angels come running only to find the Pope huddled in a chair in a corner crying to himself, muttering, "R! They left out the R!" God himself takes him aside, offers him comfort, and asks him about the problem. The Pope sobs again. It's the letter R. The word was celebrate. Think about it. Another one of the ones you'll laugh about on the way home. The convent is being remodeled, and 2 nuns are assigned the task of painting the library. Mother Superior cautions them not to get even a drop of paint on their habits. After discussing this for a while, the 2 nuns decide to lock the door of the room, strip off their habits, and paint in the nude. Can you imagine such a thing? In the middle of the project, there comes a knock at the door. "Who is it?" called one of the nuns. "Blind man," replies a voice from the other side of the door. The 2 nuns look at each other and shrug, and deciding that no harm can come from letting a blind man into the room, they open the door. "Nice tits," says the man. "Where do you want me to put these blinds?" Rush Limbaugh is a big fat idiot. Oh, I don't want to talk about the book. I just love that title. Now, don't you just love those Republicans? Bob Woodward writes bad stuff about Nixon, and he's a liar. Bob Woodward writes bad stuff about Reagan, and he's a liar. Bob Woodward writes bad stuff about me, and he's a thoroughly researched journalist. Boy, I sure got the short end of that PR stick. So what if Hillary consults with the dead? What about Nancy? I say, what about Nancy? The other night, I dreamt I was the Ayatollah Khomeini. Well, then I woke up and realized that Socks was sleeping on my face. Although I had developed a strange affinity for Muammar Gaddafi. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is it just me, or does Jimmy Carville sound like a hillbilly in a blender? Now, Vice President Al Gore had been working lots of late nights with me. Tipper, his lovely wife, decided to give him something to come home for. She bought a pair of crotchless panties. You know what I'm talking about. And when Al came walking in, there she was, sprawled across the sofa with her new purchase clearly displayed. "Don't you want a little of this, honey?" she purred. Al took one look and said, "Not after what it did to those panties." A guy dies, unfortunate but true, and he finds himself in hell. He's totally depressed. Sure, I may have led a wild life, he thinks, but I can't believe it was this bad. I didn't know it would come to this. The admissions counselor down there in hell notices his heavy heart. "What's the matter, young man? You seem kind of depressed." "Well, what do you think?" said the young man. "I'm in hell, aren't I?" The counselor replies, "Well, yeah, but it's not so bad. We have a lot of fun down here. Do you drink?" "Well, sure I like to drink." "Well, then you are going to love Mondays. On Mondays, we drink up a storm. Nothing but the finest whiskey, rum, tequila, beer, anything you want and as much as you want. And no hangover, 'cause you're already dead. Yeah, old boy, you're going to love Mondays. Do you smoke?" "Well, sure, I like to smoke." "Well, then you're going to love Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, we smoke up a storm. Nothing but the finest cigars, the best cigarettes, and no worries about cancer, 'cause you're already dead. Oh, yeah, you're going to love Tuesdays. Now tell me, do you do drugs?" "Well, I might have done a few in college." "Well, then you are going to love Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, we do drugs all over the place. You can have all you want of any drug you have ever heard of, and no worries about ODing or addiction, 'cause you're already dead. Oh, I know you're going to love Wednesdays. Hey, do you gamble?" "Well, sure, I like to gamble." "Well, then you're going to love Thursdays. On Thursdays, we gamble up a storm. All day, all night, blackjack, craps, poker, slots, horse racing, you name it. And you never have to pay your bookie, 'cause you got it, you're already dead. Yeah, oh, I just know you're going to love Thursdays. Now, let me ask you this. Are you gay?" No." "Uh-oh. Well, then, you are gonna hate Fridays." One of my secretaries stopped in at a bar in Georgetown for a drink. As she waited at the bar, she was startled to hear a bowl of pretzels say, "Lady, you are beautiful." She was questioning her own sanity when the bowl of peanuts said, "Lady, you're not just beautiful, you are gorgeous." As the bartender returned with her drink, she told him, "Your bowl of pretzels said I'm beautiful, and your peanuts said I'm gorgeous." And the bartender replied, "But of course, ma'am, they're complimentary." Now, I knew this guy, who shall remain nameless, back in Little Rock, who called his wife one evening and said, "Honey, I've been invited to spend a week fishing with some of my best customers, but they're leaving right away. Could you pack my clothes, my fishing gear, and, oh, don't forget my blue silk pajamas. I'll be home in a few minutes to pick 'em up." An hour later, he flew into the house, grabbed his stuff, and raced off. A week later, he returned. His wife asked him, "Did you have a good week, dear?" "Oh, yes, honey, it was great." "But you didn't pack my blue silk pajamas." His wife smiled and said, "Oh, yes, I did. They're in your tackle box. It's okay, folks. I know you're laughing inside. When I was in grade school, my teacher played a game. She said, "I'm holding something behind my back that's long and hard and has a pink tip." I quickly raised my hand. "Is it a pencil, teacher?" "No, little Billy," she said, "but I like the way you're thinking." So I put my hand down my pants and said, "Teacher, I'm holding something in my pocket that's round and hard and has a head on it." She cried, "All right, that's it. You're going straight to the principal's office, Billy." "Wow," I said, "it's only a quarter, but I like the way you're thinking." When I was young, I wanted to become a priest until I found out what nun meant. Why do men have belly buttons? So co-eds have a place to park their gum on the way down. What did the doctor say to the man who was nervous about being circumcised? "Well, it won't be long now." The room service waiter delivering breakfast was greeted by a beautiful young woman in a see-through nightie. As soon as he closed the door, she pounced on him, ripped off his clothes, and screwed his brains out. Afterwards, when they were dressed, she said, "Oh, here, I almost forgot," and she handed him $1. "What's this for?" he asks. "Oh, this morning when I asked my husband what should I tip the waiter, he said, 'Screw him, give him $1.' When we were both in college, Al Gore and I went to Fort Lauderdale for spring break. But when I finally found Al, he was very, very sad. "Man, I'm just not getting any. What am I doing wrong?" So I told him, "Put a potato in your pants. It gets them every time." The next day I saw him again. "Having any luck, Al?" "No," he says. "In fact, I'm doing even worse." So I suggested, "Al, try putting the potato in the front." The young lady was obviously displeased with her new lover's performance. "You must be the world's worst lay," she scolded. "I think not," he replied. "That would be too great a coincidence." You see, she was also the worst that he ever, and okay. Good night, drive safely. A young lady answered a personal ad in the paper and arranged a date with a nice-sounding man. At the appointed hour, the doorbell rang, but when she opened the door, she got a big surprise. The nice-looking fellow standing there had no arms or legs. "Hi, I'm the guy from the ad in the paper." Yes, but," she protested. "Oh, you've probably noticed my physical challenges. But look at it this way. Since I have no arms, I can't hit you. Since I have no legs, I can't run around on you." She considered all this. "Well, perhaps, and you are quite attractive. But can you satisfy my needs?" she said. "Well, I reached the doorbell, didn't I?" An attractive young mother, oh, they're the best kind, was having the birds and bees lecture with her little girl. To make a baby, the daddy puts his sperm in the mommy's tummy. "Well, I don't understand," the little girl said. "If the daddy puts his sperm in the mommy's tummy, does that mean that the mommy has to swallow the daddy's sperm?" "Well," said the mommy, "only if the mommy wants jewelry." What's the difference between beer nuts and deer nuts? Well, beer nuts are $1 a bag, but deer nuts are under $1. Now, folks, I thought I would throw in at least one true story here today. This one really did happen, my hand to God. Once a penguin believe it or not, was driving his Cadillac through Arkansas. I saw him go by. Cruising through this small town, his car began to knock and ping. So the Penguin pulled his Cadillac into the local garage. The mechanic said, "It's going to be a couple hours before I can check it out." The Penguin replied, "Well, I'll head across the street and check out that grocery store." He immediately heads into the frozen food section, where he spends the next 2 hours munching on fish sticks and ice cream bars. After a couple hours, the Penguin heads back to the garage. The mechanic takes one look at him and says, "Well, looks like you blew a seal." To which the Penguin blushed and replied, "Oh no, that's just vanilla ice cream." Why don't cannibals eat clowns? Because they taste funny. You know how a French woman holds her liquor? By the ears. What's the difference between Hillary with PMS and a pit bull? High heels and lipstick. A lot of lipstick. Now this one is Al Gore's favorite. A male and female whale are swimming off the coast of Japan when they pass under the very whaling vessel that killed the male's father 5 years before. Excited at the chance to exact revenge for his father's death, the male says, "Let's swim right underneath the ship and expel air through our blowholes until we capsize that boat. That ought to make them think twice about killing innocent whales." The female whale agreed, and together they managed to sink the whaler. But their celebration was short-lived when they noticed that most of the sailors were swimming to shore. "Hey, let's gobble 'em up," cries the male. "No way," says the female. "I agreed to the blow job, but there's no way I'm swallowing semen." I had a buddy back in Arkansas who divorced his new wife when he found out she was a virgin. I asked him, "Why did you do that, Virgil?" And he replied, "Well, hell, if she ain't good enough for her family, she sure ain't good enough for me." The florist delivered a dozen roses to Kate's office. "Damn," she said to her friend. "Now I'll have to spend the entire weekend with my legs up in the air." Her friend replied, "What's the matter, honey? Ain't you got a vase?" I have such a good memory that I can remember events that occurred before I was born. In fact, I distinctly remember going to the drive-in with my father and returning home with my mother. Did you hear they hired a doorman down at the sperm bank? His job is to tell each guy, "Thanks for coming." Do you know the difference between light and hard? Personally, I can sleep with a light on. Here's a hypothetical for you. If you come across Newt Gingrich drowning in the middle of a raging river, and you had a choice between rescuing him or getting a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph, what shutter speed would you use? One night last week, I felt like I needed some inspiration, so I decided to take a long walk. Passing the Washington Monument, I prayed to the spirit of President Washington, the father of our country. "George, you were our country's first great leader. Everyone trusted you. How can I gain the people's trust?" And I swear I heard the voice of President Washington say to me, "Never tell a lie." I thought this over as I continued on my walk. Passing the Jefferson Memorial, I prayed to the spirit of Thomas Jefferson. "Thomas, you established the basis for our entire legal system. You were a very popular president. How can I improve my popularity?" And I swear I heard the voice of President Jefferson say, "Never raise taxes." I winced a little, but I kept on walking. Passing the Lincoln Memorial, I was getting desperate, so I prayed to the spirit of President Lincoln. Honest Abe, you were a man of great integrity. You abolished slavery and, in so doing, helped free all Americans from an uncivilized institution. Abe, how can I set our people free today? And you know what that dang Lincoln said to me? Go see a play. What does George Bush have in common with Jennifer Flowers? They were both upset when I finished first. Hillary bounded into the Oval Office today. Why are you so happy? I asked her. Oh, I just came back from Bethesda Naval Hospital in my annual physical, she replied. The doctor said I had the breasts of a 25-year-old. Well, I asked her, what did he say about your 50-year-old ass? Oh, she replied, your name didn't come up. Chelsea, my lovely daughter, she was out walking with a couple of her girlfriends when they spotted Newt Gingrich himself about to be run over by a car. They quickly pulled him out of the way and onto the curb. Well, you saved my life, ladies, said Newt. As Speaker of the House, I'm a very powerful man here in Washington. What could I do to repay you? The first girl says, I want to go to Georgetown. Newt replies, consider it done. The second girl says, I want to go to West Point. Newt replies, no problem, I'll take care of it. Now he turns to Chelsea. And what can I do for you, Chelsea? She says, I want to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Newt says, well, that's an odd request for such a young woman. Well, maybe so, says Chelsea. But when my daddy finds out I saved your life, he's going to kill me. She is such a scamp. I mean, that really wouldn't happen. I'm not going to kill my own daughter. One night in the middle of nowhere, a traveling salesman car breaks down right by a farmer's house. The salesman knocks on the farmer's door. The farmer answers and says, sure, you can spend the night here, but you have to sleep with my 19-year-old son. But only if you promise not to... Wait, never mind, interrupts the salesman as he starts back to his car. I'm in the wrong joke. Newt Gingrich and I were discussing family values. Newt said, I never slept with my wife before we were married. Did you? And I replied, well, I don't know, Newt. What was her maiden name? What do a hurricane and a marriage gone bad have in common? They both start off with a lot of sucking and blowing, but in the end, somebody loses a house. Say, did you hear about the scientists that discovered the million-year-old bacteria inside that meteorite from Mars? Oh, it's great to know that somewhere there's a life form older than Bob Dole. Some of the women in Arkansas are so fast, I had to put a governor on them. Two nuns were bicycling down a cobblestone street when the first one said, Sister Catherine, I don't believe we've ever come this way before. And Sister Catherine replied, must be these cobblestones. Well, it seems a woman walked into the pro shop at a country club with tears streaming down her face. The golf pro said, oh my God, lady, what happened? She replied, I got stung by a bee. Golf pro said, I'm so sorry. Where did it happen? She replied, between the first and second holes. To which the golf pro answered, oh, that's your problem. Your stance is too wide. I've been in love with the same woman for over 20 years. And if Hillary ever finds out, she'll kill me. The worst 3 words you can hear while making love? Honey, I'm home. You know the difference between a liberal and a puppy? The puppy stops whining once it grows up. Why was Ross Perot's wife glad he didn't get elected? 'Cause if he won, she'd have had to move to a smaller house in a bad neighborhood. You know why Arkansas only holds driver's training classes 3 days a week? The other 2 days, they use the cars for sex education. See, they get in the back seat and they drive to a secluded, never mind. You know Paula Jones' favorite game? Swallow the leader. You know why we didn't stage a White House Christmas pageant last year? Couldn't find 3 wise men or a virgin. Hillary and I were at the opening game of baseball season. A Secret Service agent whispered something in my ear. I looked at him funny, but figured, well, okay, he works for the Secret Service. So I grabbed Hillary by her belt and the scruff of her neck, and I tossed her over the seats and out onto the playing field. The Secret Service agent looked shocked and whispered to me again. I looked at him and said sheepishly, "Oh, first pitch." Other than me, you know the best thing that ever came out of Arkansas? Interstate 55. The Senate held a spelling bee, and the finalists were Dan Quayle, Ted Kennedy, and Bob Packwood. You know who won? Dan Quayle. Yep, he was the only one who knew that harass was one word. What's the difference between a porcupine and a limousine filled with lawyers? On the porcupine, all the pricks are on the outside. Rush Limbaugh and Janet Reno found themselves alone on an elevator. Janet grabbed the stop button and pulled it out, stranding the pair between floors. She stripped off her clothes, threw them on the floor, and ordered, "Rush, make me feel like a real woman." So Rush took off his clothes, threw them on the floor, and ordered, "Iron and fold these." You know why Al Gore abolished coffee breaks for civil servants? Took too long to retrain them. See, in the 10 minutes it took to drink a cup of coffee, they would virtually forget everything that they ever... Okay, moving on. The Secret Service got a real scare the other day when somebody threw a can of beer at me. Fortunately, it was a draft, so I dodged it. I'd like to state categorically that there's absolutely no truth at all to the vicious rumor going around that at my inauguration I had the Marine Band play "Inhale to the Chief." Hey, did you hear about the blind prostitute? Well, you gotta hand it to her. You know how Las Vegas is different from Washington, D.C.? In Vegas, the drunks gamble with their own money. You see, in D.C., they do it with yours. A man walks into a doctor's office.
"Doc, you gotta help me. Do something about my voice."
"Why, certainly, sir. Take off all your clothes and hop up here on the examination table." "Whoa, never mind. I can see exactly what your problem is. You suffer from penile elongation."
"Is it serious?"
"Oh, it's a simple operation. We'll just shorten you a foot or so. You'll still have plenty left to live a full, rewarding life." And so he did. About 3 months later, the same guy returned. "Doc, remember that operation you did? I kind of miss, the way I used to be. How about sewing part of that back on?" To which the doctor replied,
"No way. A deal's a deal."
You see, the doctor's voice had changed because what he had done was he took the severed member and reattached it. Well, I think you can finish the picture for yourself. What's the difference between a tribe of wily pygmies and a girls' track team? Well, one's a bunch of cunning runts. These two explorers were on safari out in the jungle, and they got captured by a tribe of natives who dragged them back to their village and tied them up to a stake. The chief of the tribe came up to one of them, looked him in the eye face to face, and said, "I give you a choice, death or Kiki." Well, the explorer looked around and said, "I'll take Kiki." And the chief said, "Okay, Kiki." They untied him, they threw him down on the ground. All the men in the tribe had sex with him, and they beat him to a bloody mess with spiked clubs. The chief went up to the other explorer, looked him in the eye, and said, "I give you a choice, death or Kiki." The other fellow, he said, "Well, are you kidding? I'll take death." The chief replied, "Okay, death. But first, Kiki." It seems there were these two brothers who worked very hard on the farm every day tilling the soil. Now, one day they decided that they needed a vacation, so they went to the big city to live it up for one weekend. They had a great time in the big city, and they were driving home back to the farm on Sunday night when their truck broke down right after the sun had set. They looked around and saw that there was only one farmhouse within walking distance. They left the truck by the side of the road, went up to the farmhouse, and knocked on the front door. The farmer answered the door and said, "Yes, what can I do for you?" The brothers said, "Well, sir, our truck broke down by the side of the road, and it's too dark to try to fix it. We were wondering if maybe you had a place where we could spend the night, and we'll be out of here in the morning." The farmer looked at him and said, "Well, the only room I have is my daughter's bedroom. I suppose you could sleep on the floor, but I don't want any hanky-panky or monkey business in there." Two brothers agreed. They said, "Oh, sir, don't worry. We're gentlemen. We just want to sleep. We'll be out of here when the sun rises." So they're in the daughter's bedroom on the floor with blankets, trying to go to sleep, when the daughter, who was in the full flower of her girlhood, taps one of the brothers on the shoulder and says, "Hey, would you like to roll in the sack with me?" And the brother looks around and says, "Well, sure, why not?" The daughter says, "Now, you wouldn't want to catch anything, and I wouldn't want to get pregnant, so I want you to wear this." She hands him a condom. He puts it on, jumps in the sack, and has a roll in the hay with the lovely daughter. When they're finished, the daughter taps the other brother on the shoulder and says, "Your turn, good looking. But I don't want to get pregnant, and you don't want to catch anything, so wear this." She hands him a condom. He puts it on, jumps in the sack. They roll in the hay. He gets back down on the floor and goes to sleep. Now, early the next morning, they get up with the sun. They fix their truck, and they're on their way. Father never knew anything about it. A couple weeks later, the brothers are out in the field, tilling the soil. One of them turns to the other and says, "Hey, you remember that farmer's daughter a couple weeks ago?" The other one says, "Boy, do I." And the other one says, "Do you really care if she gets pregnant or not?" And the other one says, "Well, no, not really." "Well then, let's take these damn things off."